What we're talking about today is two-factor authentication, and it's the method for keeping your data safe. So what is two-factor authentication? It's a security measure that requires you to verify your identity in two ways in order to access a particular website or app. So websites or apps will usually have you sign in with your username and password. This is another layer of protection. You prove your identity in another way to make it that much more secure. You might see two-factor authentication referred to as two-step verification. It's the same thing. It's just language that means the same thing. Some apps and websites may say two-factor authentication or two-step verification. Many of us, I'm sure, have logged into an app or a website and you do your username and password, but then they send you a code, like they text you or email you a one-time code to enter. Then you use two-step authentication. That's one of the most common forms. You have your username and password, but then you have a temporary code that you're asked to enter as well. You may have used this without even knowing that that's what it was. Some websites that are more high security for various reasons, they might actually require you to do this. A lot that are medium security, like social media, stuff like that, it's a good idea to use that on it, but it's not required. And it might not even be the default. So I'll show you how to set that up. But you may have run into experiences where you don't actually have the option to turn this off. I know that for our payroll, we have two-step authentication because they want it to be so no one can get into your payroll account. So you may have come across that too, but usually you have the choice. So how do websites and apps verify your identity? What is it that they're using to verify your identity anyway? And I like these three broad categories. I think they're really helpful to think about. Something like your password, your PIN, an answer to a security question, something that you have in your brain that is hopefully unique to you in a way that other people can't guess it. Then another way is with something you have. So a one-time verification code is something you have that you'll have access to. In other situations, it might be a physical security key. So if you are working in an environment where there's a high level of security, you might have a USB drive that you stick in the computer to prove your identity, or you might have a badge or something like that. That's not going to really apply to what we're talking about. This is going to be more like the one-step verification code as something. And then with something you are, so that gets into the realm of biometrics. So fingerprint, face, retina. I know some of you probably have your phone set up that you do face scan to unlock it, or you do your fingerprints to unlock it. That's something you are. That's something that is like intrinsically part of your body. That's very difficult to replicate. So two-factor authentication relies on proof from two of these categories instead of just one. Instead of just a password or instead of just a fingerprint, there's something else. Two of these categories are covered. Like putting another lock on your door. You have two locks instead of one. How does it work? Let's look at the example that I was talking about before. So this is a lovely illustration of what that looks like. You go to sign into your account, whatever account it may be. It might be Gmail, it might be MyChart, it might be just about anything that has two-step authentication as an option. You put in your username and your password. You go to sign in, and then it sends you the verification code, either by text, which is also referred to as SMS, or it might send it to you by email. It's most likely that it's going to send it to you by text. That's how a lot of them do it these days. And it's relatively easy. You're on your phone, you have it there. And then what you do is you go and you enter that verification code. So that's your second level of protection in that two-step authentication. Just a tip here, depending on the settings on your phone, sometimes when you get those text message codes, they will automatically copy. So you can just paste them into the sort of blank space where they're asking for it. Sometimes they won't. And sometimes the space will be such that it won't let you copy. If you struggle with like toggling between two apps, which can be really difficult on your phone sometimes, just jot that code down, write it down on a piece of paper so you can go back to the app, put it in, and then throw it away when you're done. It's time limited. If somebody finds it, they're not going to be able to use it anyway. Because it's time limited, because it has that built-in protection of like, this only is going to work once you've entered it, it doesn't really apply anymore. Do whatever you need to do to be able to get that code from your text messages to wherever it is that's asking for it, whatever the app or the website is, in order to do two-factor authentication. Also, and some of you with iPhones may have experienced this, iPhones and other Apple devices, sometimes sometimes apps will have a built-in authenticator app that's part of when you download the app itself. It's got an authenticator part to it. So instead of getting a text message or an email, you'll get an actual notification from the app itself. Again, if you have any Apple products, you may have seen this before where it says somebody signed into your account. Are you logging in? And it'll give you a location. And if you're logging into a new device, or if you're doing something new on a device that you haven't used before for that particular purpose, sometimes it will ask you that on your phone. Is this you logging in? And that's when you have the option to say, yes, that's me, and no, it isn't. But in this case, it's approve or deny. If you're the one who's trying to access that new device or do something new on a different device, that's you. So you say, yeah. If you get that out of the blue and you haven't been doing anything that would have prompted that, then you say no, and you go in and change your password. So these are two different forms of two-factor authentication. One, you get the message in code by text or by email, but mostly by text, or you have certain apps that have it built into their system where they're going to prompt you if you log in from somewhere else. But either way, you will see those notifications if somebody is trying to log in. And then many apps now offer biometrics, so fingerprint, facial recognition as an option in their two-step authentication process. Username and password, then you're prompted to scan your fingerprint, then you're good. Some of you may be doing this on some of your apps already. What are the pros and cons of using two-factor authentication? The pros, a little bit of what we've talked about already, is increased security, and especially for people who use relatively simple passwords. So I know passwords are ridiculously hard to remember. It's very difficult, but if you use a simple password because that's what you can remember, this is a great way to add another layer of protection to your account so it doesn't get hacked. Even if somebody does guess what your password is, they still would have to do the second step of authentication in order to get into your account. So if you are somebody who relies on not super complicated passwords, this is a great option to add to it. Also, like I said before, you'll be notified immediately if somebody else tries to log into your account. If you're not the person who's doing that and you get one of these notifications, either a temporary login code or you get one of those things that say, is this you? You'll know that there's somebody trying to get into your account that isn't you. So that is super helpful, and it can prompt you to go in and to change your password to keep whatever account it is more safe. The drawback to two-factor authentication, which you may have run into as well, is it can sometimes be time-consuming and frustrating. You're going back and forth between apps. It's an extra step in the process. You might not want to set it up just because it's going to make it difficult for you. That's totally fair. I just want to give you the option and say there may be some apps that you absolutely want this for security sake. I have this tip down at the bottom that the Federal Trade Commission suggests turning it on for things like banking and tax filing apps, email, and social media. So things that you really don't want somebody getting your data from, then using your own discretion what you want it on other than that. If it does make logging in more difficult, you might not want it on some things that are not super high security for you. So it is really up to you, but it's definitely a good method for adding extra protection to your account. So how do you turn it on? And again, there are many apps that offer this as an extra security feature. So MyChart, like we were talking about, Facebook has it. A lot of the social media apps have it. Gmail has it. Tax apps have it. H&R Block, and many things, even things that probably don't strike you as particularly high security. There's going to be a little bit of a different way to set it up in every app, but I'm going to walk through the steps in Gmail. And also, just when you're trying to set this up, go to the app or the website when you're logged in and look at your settings. Find your settings and go to security. And chances are, if there is the option to do two-factor authentication, that's where those settings will be. We'll see that in Gmail, but that should be true of just about any app or website that you have. If you have a menu within your settings that says security, that's where this setting will be. But for this example, we're going to look at Gmail. So this on the right here is what it looks like when you set it up. So that is our goal. The first thing you want to do is open your Gmail account, just like you normally would to send an email. And you want to click here on this. If you have a picture for your Gmail account, it'll be your picture. For me, it's just my first initial. But you want to click there to get to your Google account setting. So click on that first. You'll be prompted here where it says Google account. Go ahead and click on that. And this is a good thing to know just to get into your settings for anything, really. This is just one thing that's in those list of menus. So you'll see here, you should have a screen that looks something like this. And you'll see here that you have home, personal info, data and privacy. Over here, fourth one over, if you can see that little S, it's security. You have to scroll over until you get to security. That's what you're looking for. So you're going to click on that. And then under that security menu, you'll see a place that says two-step verification. Again, same thing as two-factor authentication. This is just what Gmail calls it. Right now it's off. I want to turn it on. What I'm going to do is click on this, click on where it says two-step verification. And what you'll see is something like on the right where it says add phone number. I don't have a phone number that was linked to this Gmail account. So they need that phone number so that they can send me that verification code as the second step of two-factor authentication. What you're going to do is click on add your phone number and go ahead and add the phone number that you want to use for this. Again, it should be your cell phone. It should be obviously a phone that can get text messages, but the one that you have on you all the time, because it's going to be important, obviously, that you have access to that in order to enter the code. Once you've done that, you will be set up for two-step verification. That's really all they need to know. And you'll see here, that is the number that they will send that verification code to. And so the next time that you go to log into Gmail, you'll be asked then to enter that verification code. So you would look at your phone and see the verification code. And then if you want an even higher degree of protection, you can scroll down on that security menu and you'll see this thing that says passkeys and security keys. It took me a long time to figure out what they were talking about with this, like what that language meant. Like, what is a passkey or a security key? And basically what this is you're setting it up so that when you go to log into this particular app, it asks you to prove your identity in the way that you unlock your phone. So whatever security key that you have on your phone, it might be a PIN number, it might be a face scan, it might be a fingerprint. What it'll do is instead of sending you that text with the code, is that it will do your username and password, and then it will ask you to do the same thing you would do to unlock your phone. So that can be a way to bypass some of the more time-consuming steps that come with two-factor authentication. Whatever it is you do to unlock your phone, it might not feel as difficult to do that extra step, especially if it's something like a fingerprint. You're just putting your fingerprint down, but it's still an extra step worth of security. And like I said, though we use Gmail for this example, the steps for setting up two-factor authentication should be similar on other apps and websites. And often when you're setting up an account on an app or a website that offers two-factor authentication, you'll be prompted at the beginning to turn it on or off. They might even suggest that you turn it on. You can go ahead and do that in the initial setting up an account phase, but you can also go into apps and websites that you use already. And like we said, check out those security features and see if two-factor authentication is an option for that. And one last thing, why two-factor authentication is helpful. So if you ever receive one of those notifications that someone is trying to log into your account, if you get this temporary code, but you weren't trying to access anything new, it wasn't you doing that, that's a sign that somebody is trying to access your account who is not you. And what you want to do in that case is don't enter the code anywhere. Don't say it was you. Say it's not me if they ask if it's you. What you want to do is go ahead and log into the app that prompted that and change your password immediately. That is protecting you from any further hacking into your account from that person. Obviously, somehow they were able to get in with your password. Change your password, and then you should be better protected again. This is a great thing because it gives you the heads up that that's happened, and you don't have to wait on like the app themselves or somebody from that particular company to say, oh, we think your account might have been accessed. You can see it in real time, and you can go in and make the changes to your password to make sure that it stays protected. So it puts the power of that in your hands. I just included some sources here. This is where I got some of this information from: the Federal Trade Commission and also Norton, that makes antivirus software and is all about security.